Hello, welcome to the APO Productivity Talk. I'm Rie from the APO Secretariat, based in Tokyo, Japan. The Asian Productivity Organization is the leading intergovernmental organization committed to promoting productivity, fostering innovation, and enhancing competitiveness across our 21 member countries in the Asia-Pacific region. Over the past several months, we have broadcast a series of top talks and productivity talks on various topics related to productivity, innovation, and economic resilience. For today, we turn our focus on innovative, data-driven business models. To take us further on this interesting topic, we are honored to have Professor Masaru Yarime, Associate Professor at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. Good afternoon, Professor Yarime. How are you today?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me to this exciting opportunity to discuss the emergence of data-driven innovation and its implications for management and public policy.
Thank you very much for joining us. Let me introduce a little bit about you to viewers who are watching this session live. Professor Masaru Yarime is an associate professor at the Division of Public Policy in the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. He has concurrent academic appointments at the Department of Science, Technology, Engineering, and Public Policy in University College London and at the Graduate School of Public Policy in the University of Tokyo. On top of that, he's also the visiting scholar at the Japan International Cooperation Agency Research Institute. His research interests are wide-ranging and span across science, technology, and innovation policy for energy, environment, and sustainability. For the few past years, he has been engaged in research and educational activities from interdisciplinary perspectives with an intention to understand the complex interface between engineering and social sciences and the dynamic interactions between technology and institutions in creating sustainability innovation. He has deep experience of cooperation and collaboration with academia, industry, and government, and civil society in Asia, Europe, and North America. In the current world, thanks to the technology, a wide range of data is available. The question now turns on this. How can governments, businesses, industries, and individuals collect, analyze, and transform data into knowledge to create information and value that will energize industry? In today's talk, Professor Yarime will share with us some strategies which governments, businesses, and communities are adopting when building data-driven business models. After his presentation, there will be a live Q&A session. So, if you have any questions for Professor Yarime, please pose your questions with your name and country in the live chat. We will answer as many questions as the time allows. Without further ado, we would like to proceed to the presentation. Professor Yarime, the floor is yours. Thank you for your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much for your kind introduction, Minamoto-san. And my name is Masaru Yarime, and currently I'm working at the Division of Public Policy at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. I have been working on science, technology, innovation policy with a particular focus on energy, environment, and sustainability. And increasingly, data-driven innovation has become such a big issue with regard to transforming the whole industry and also business models. And then these new phenomena have very important implications for corporate strategy and also public policy. So this is really emerging area and rapidly evolving. So I'm just going to give you today some of the key features which probably we should pay attention to, and then think about the implications for your own business areas or your own policy domains. Data-driven innovation, as you can see, they are emerging in different areas, but essentially they are based on a lot of data coming from different sources which were not necessarily available in the past, and then to trying to somehow transforming different segments and divisions, and then to provide better services, more efficient services, and also more inclusive services. So then that we are expecting to contributing to more resource efficient and sustainable business models. So essentially, I'd say there are, I think, several key challenges we have to think about in facilitating data-driven innovation. And one issue is learning and adaptation. So how we can really facilitate learning and adaptation through experimentation, particularly with stakeholders on the ground, so that we can learn from making mistakes and errors, and then try to adjust and adapt to the new situation. And then the second issue is development of business models. And particularly as we increasingly share data with the other stakeholders, so which means that how we can really share the benefits. And in the case of business sector, how we can share the profits with other stakeholders. And that could include maybe competitors. So that would be a big challenge, a kind of collective business model. And then the third issue is the data governance. Because of this data-driven innovation, essentially depends on what kind of data you have and what kind of data you can share with others, and then how you can use this kind of data. So this is really a critical challenge in many parts of the world. So particularly, we need to think about making a balance between data sharing to promote innovation, but also at the same time, we need to pay attention and do respect to security and also privacy protection. So these are some of the key features we have to think about in facilitating data-driven innovation. So here, this is just a kind of simple diagram for illustrating a kind of cycle for data-driven innovation. And first, we have to have data and kind of collecting data from different sources, and which may not necessarily be possible in the past, but then that increasingly we can tap into new kind of data from different sources. And then we have big data and a lot of data increasingly available. And then we have to analyze this huge amount of data. And then in this case, we have to apply data analytics software, and also we have to have human resources and also skills. So maybe we have to hire new talents from other sectors. And then we create kind of new knowledge base, which can provide the critical knowledge for decision making. So this kind of cycle is really important. And then the challenge is that how we can really get necessary components for this skill and also data sets, and then how we can really manage the whole cycle. So that probably would require new skills for data management and also organization management and also human resource management. And then ultimately, that depends on the top level management to make decision based on this cycle. So here we can identify three key components. And the first is data. Obviously, that we need to have data, so which means that we need to secure availability to data and also accessibility to data. And that requires a lot of the consideration with regard to where we can find data, and then how we can negotiate with the stakeholders and owners of this kind of data, and then how we can manage the accessibility to this data. And then we also need to think about whether the quantity and quality are they sufficient, or we need to maintain some system to guarantee the quantity and quality. And then increasingly, we need to promote open data so that we somehow try to exchange and share a lot of data with other stakeholders and other organizations. And then here we need to increasingly have Internet of Things so that we put the sophisticated devices in buildings and also in automobiles, and then the different space and different the locations. And for this, we can use some new technologies like drones, and also we can increasingly use the satellite images and to make a lot of analysis which were not available in the past. And then once we have access to data, and then we need to analyze this data, so big data. So we have to introduce data analytics, and particularly increasingly, we are somehow expected to utilize the artificial intelligence, particularly the machine learning, so that we need to get new findings based on this big data. And then what is critically important is to integrate with the domain expertise. So now AI is not only the IT sector, but increasingly the data science would be available and accessible to other sectors. So one challenge is to how we can combine these findings of data analytics with the domain expertise, increasingly which are linked to physical systems. So different sectors like energy, transportation, and the other key segments. So involving manufacturing sector, and also increasingly we need to apply this kind of data-driven innovation for sustainability challenges like energy, environment, and also the health issues and the disasters and others. So we need to think about all these three key components, and then we can think about how we can integrate these three domains and components for your own areas of business and policy. So one key issue with regard to AI is the rapid technological progress. And as you can see, increasingly the performance of AI, and particularly in the case of the visual recognition, including face recognition, the performance has been really improving quite rapidly. So now that it is said that the level of accuracy made by the AI will be much better than humans, at least in the segment of visual recognition. So now we are getting this kind of rapidly improving the data-driven innovation, and new data would be increasingly available, and particularly by utilizing this data-driven innovation on the ground for actual usage with the stakeholders, so that by providing all these services, and then you get more data, and then you can learn more from real-world use and experience. So one issue is this kind of training. So how we can really train the particularly the AI by using this kind of technology, and then how we can improve the performance by adapting to this what's going on the ground. So one challenge is to how we can effectively accelerate training and adaptation so that we can really improve the performance of technology and also services. And here we can say that increasingly we see kind of evolution from purely cyber-based technologies to cyber physical systems. So traditionally we talked about, let's say, the Amazon or the Google and others, and which are purely the platform or the cyberspace. But then that increasingly all the other innovations adopted in cyber physical systems. So that would be, I think, a key challenge to many businesses in different sectors, in the sense that, as I mentioned, that we need to integrate all this data and also data analytics with the domain expertise, particularly cyber physical systems. So this is just example of cyber physical systems in the case of construction sector. So here, initially, this company has been working on collecting data on the site of construction. So then trying to trace the movement of trucks and also construction machineries. And then increasingly, other kinds of data will be integrated in this system as a kind of platform by putting all these IoT devices in different segments and different the things, so that now all the conditions and situations with regard to the workers and also the land and also all the machineries, and then that they integrated with the other information from GIS and also satellite data, and then that this would be really a kind of a platform for collecting and then integrating different kinds of data, and then that this kind of platform is increasingly provided to other stakeholders and other companies working in the construction sector. So this is just for example, but increasingly we can see this type of the integration and making a kind of platform for the providing a lot of different kinds of data for services. So we see the similar trends can be seen in energy sectors and buildings, housing sector, and then transportation and health sector, so that in a way that in each domain, there's a kind of trend to integrate data analytics with domain expertise. So in the case of energy, we can see the peer-to-peer exchange of energy in the distributed energy systems. Also, that could be based on blockchain, so that all the households can be energy producers and also consumers, and then they can exchange energy with each other. Also, in the case of transportation, we see what is called the CASE, the Connected Autonomous Sharing and Electrified the transportation systems. And then increasingly, mobility is provided as a kind of service. And then we see also the health sector. We see a lot of AI systems increasingly introduced to diagnose cancers, for example. And also software as a medical device is also a big issue, and that also poses really important opportunities, but also challenge to regulators, for example. So one example in the case of the energy sector, and here this is just illustration of a system where households can put the photovoltaics on the top of the roof, and then put the electric vehicles and then batteries, and then you put the smart meters to measure all this energy production and consumption, and also exchange with the peer consumers, your neighbors, and then that would be based on the blockchain, so that there's no central control, but then that the households can exchange energy with each other. So this kind of system will be increasingly possible, that we can incorporate more renewable energy in a more flexible manner, and also we can improve efficiency because we can somehow adjust consumption and also production in a more efficient way. So technically speaking, these kind of systems will be increasingly available and also feasible. But then there are many challenges with regard to management issue and also institutional issues, with, including the public policy and also the legal issues. So here, for example, in the case of energy sector, traditionally there are a lot of regulations because of this, the stability and also safety and security. But then how we can really streamline regulatory framework to allow all these households to produce energy and then to sell energy with each other. So that would be one issue. And then also we have to think about the charging issues and also licensing issues, so that anybody can potentially enter into this peer-to-peer exchange of energy. And also legal issue, we need to think about standardization. Also, we have to deal with the privacy issue, particularly this data ownership and also data sovereignty. So who can really manage, who can really be in charge of governing the data. So we have to think about all these institutional challenges when we really trying to introduce data-driven innovation into your business domains. And in the health sector, for example, the AI-powered diagnostic systems would be increasingly available. And the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration in the US, somehow also tried to introduce this kind of system, so that this is just a first case that they approved AI-based system without doctors' help. In this kind of medical domains, that obviously we have to think about all these challenges, including how to deal with these errors and also validation, and also increasingly we have to think about the liability when there are some mistakes or some kind of incidents involving the misjudgment with regard to the diagnosis. And then also we have to think about data sharing with the different hospitals or between the doctors and also other institutions for other services. And then one issue would be the privacy issue, particularly in the case of health data. It's very sensitive. So how we can, at the same time, the data would be also useful for machine learning, for example. So which means that it's really better to collect a lot of data from different sources involving different populations. But then to do so, we need to anonymize this kind of data. So that kind of challenge still we have to overcome in this data-driven innovation in the medical sector. And then this is just one example. Just recently, the Google has tried to use AI-based system in the actual environment in hospital. This is a case in Thailand. And in a way, technically speaking, it's a really good idea to try to use AI-based system for diagnosis, for example. But then this study somehow has found that there are many other issues we have to think about, particularly the workflows. So how we have to somehow adjust the workflow involving doctors, nurses, and also administration in the hospitals. And also we need to maintain transparency so that people can trust in this kind of system involving AI-based devices and equipment. And also we have to think about how actually this kind of system is used in the environment. So like in the case of this diagnostic system, we have to think about lighting, for example, so that affects the ability of the nurses to really check the diagnosis. We really need to test all this data-driven innovation in actual environments in different domains and different sectors, so that and then we can learn from probably by making mistakes and errors, and then we can adjust the systems involving the workflows and also administration, so that we can improve our capacity to manage and use AI-based systems. And then increasingly, we have really a key challenge in this the privacy and security in data-driven innovation. So particularly facial recognition is really a hot topic in the sense that some of the countries and some of the cities are actually thinking about banning the use of facial recognition. And they, for example, in the case of European Union, considered kind of temporal ban of using facial recognition, although they haven't really introduced this kind of the regulation to ban the use of facial recognition. But there are a lot of the discussion going on how we can really manage properly emerging technologies like facial recognition, so that we can facilitate the use of new technologies for benefits, but at the same time protect the privacy and also due respect to societal concerns. So just as I said, that in the case of data-driven innovation, we have to think about just really the rapid speed of technological change, and also we don't know exactly to which direction the technology could evolve because of this the nature of deep learning in particular, so that we can really we have difficulties in explaining or understanding what exactly is the process of getting the outcome in the end. There's a kind of widening gap between technological progress and also institutional change, in the sense that how the people, and particularly how the managers and also policymakers, can catch up with the rapid progress in technological development. So this could be called a kind of pacing problem. But probably we would see increasingly the wide gap between this technological progress and also the human capacity to catch up with the technological progress. So that would be a really big challenge. And also we see increasingly things interconnected through data. Different sectors and different also organizations that we see already integrated systems. So which means that we need to think about the coordination of behavior and expectation and also policies in different sectors and different domains. And then we have all these ethical issues, legal issues, and particularly we see different countries and different regions would have different interests and preferences with regard to privacy, so that how we can somehow localize all this legal framework and institutional arrangement, but at the same time, how we can coordinate all this the legal and institutional environment, so that we can facilitate the data flow going beyond the borders, the cross-border data flow and data use, so that we can also contributing to facilitating the learning based on the AI, for example. So there are many issues we don't know how to deal with. So perhaps we could promote here now is to how we can share the experience of using all these technologies in a very designated experimental area or living laboratories or regulatory sandboxes so that we can test new technologies in actual environments, and then working with stakeholders, and then how we can learn by trial and errors, making mistakes, and then how we can adjust technologies and our systems, our legal frameworks and policies so that we can really move on to this kind of societal experimentation. So that will be really kind of new business models we have to think about. So here, probably we could say this would be open innovation 2.0 in the sense that traditionally we talked about closed innovation in the sense that we have intellectual property rights and then very close, let's say, the kind of system, doing research in your laboratory or your central research center, and depending upon your own personnel and expertise. And then now we come to this open innovation. Somehow we try to have a kind of alliance with other companies and cross-licensing and getting knowledge from other companies. But then now we have what could be called open innovation 2.0 in the sense that now we have a much wider stakeholders involved, particularly in the case of, let's say, data driven innovation in transportation or smart cities. And then we have different kinds of stakeholders from different sectors. And then that we need to have a really kind of collaboration for experimentation together. So that's why we see many examples emerging of emergence of smart cities in different countries and regions by different players. So that will be, I think, really a new challenge to the business community in the sense that it's not only the traditional suppliers and also customers, but also there are new entrants from different sectors, and also you also need to deal with obviously the regulatory agencies, and also you need to deal with NGOs so that you can also talk about privacy issues and also security issues in a wider context of society. So really, we need to think about all these key challenges in data-driven innovation. So again, we have to think about this large amount of data from different segments, and then how to integrate data to share, to use the shared data to stimulate innovation for societal benefits. But at the same time, we need to provide incentives to stakeholders so that we somehow encourage all these stakeholders to share the data with others for societal benefits. And they, at the same time, we need to address concerns about data security and privacy. And we need to have a consensus and consent from the citizens in particular. And then we need to establish a kind of data governance system so that we have a public trust based on transparency, so that we can maximize the benefits of innovation, but at the same time minimize the risks to individuals and communities. So yeah, this is just one example recently proposed by some researchers. And then here we can use the data about energy consumption through smart meters, for example, in households. But then that kind of data can be also used for delivery services, so that by looking at energy consumption data, we can see when, for example, the residents are inside the house, for example. Then we can see delivery service can be adjusted to the timing when the residents are actually staying in the house, for example. So that will really the, improve the efficiency of delivery service, which means that we can also improve the energy consumption for delivery services. And then obviously we can also efficiently use the workforces, which will be really how to secure the workforce will be a big challenge in some of the countries, particularly in East Asia. And then this is also a new initiative by the government of Japan. And so here, this is kind of how to facilitate data sharing by creating data linkage platform so that different kinds of data from different sources, from different agencies and organizations can be connected with each other to provide different types of, including logistics, mobility, disaster, welfare, education, finance. And so I think the key challenge is that how we can really establish this kind of operating system in a way so that stakeholders can trust this system, and then citizens can trust with regard to the privacy, and then at the same time, it will be useful for companies and service providers to use data and then connect data with others, so that it's really key challenge. And details with this kind of system will also depend on local conditions and the context, because different stakeholders and different organizations would have different preferences. So that it's really important to have a system to form a kind of consensus by involving stakeholders. And in this kind of system, we have to think about, let's say, three key aspects. One is individual rights. Obviously, we have to deal with some sensitive data, so that we have to think about privacy and also security. But at the same time, we have to think about the interest of data holders, and increasingly, we see large platformers, and obviously they have their own interest. So, and also to stimulate innovation, we have to, in a way, somehow encourage the entrance by new entrepreneurs and startups to this area. So, which means that we have to, in a way, guarantee their profits so that they have incentives to do innovation. And then now we also need to think about the public interest. And this is clearly illustrated in the case of COVID-19. And some of the countries in East Asia show that it is quite effective to utilize some data involving some sensitive data to trace the cases of COVID-19, and then somehow quarantine some of the people who might be infected with the virus. So we need to have a kind of balance among the three key considerations so that we can properly govern data-driven innovation. So somehow I'm going to summarize the key issues. So we have a widening gap between technological change and institutional readiness. So and then things are interconnected with each other. So that, which means that we need to learn by using in the real world. So training and adaptation. So these are key the capabilities in navigating the new era of data-driven innovation. So to do so, we need to think about testing and trial and errors. So we can think about living laboratories, test beds, regulatory sandboxes, so that all these ideas somehow try to incorporate the experimentation with stakeholders and then learn and adapt with each other. So, and in this point, particularly, we have to think about all these the questions with regard to data governance. So how we can collect, share, use data among stakeholders, and then what kind of incentives can be provided with the different interests and motivations to facilitate data sharing, and then how we can share the benefits among stakeholders. That could include your competitors and also other stakeholders which are not familiar to you. And then what kind of governance system can be established to manage data ownership, accessibility, and then what kind of policy measures and institutional arrangements need to be taken to deal with particularly sensitive data with regard to privacy and security. And then what are the impacts we have to examine and then learn from all this experimentation. So just as an initiative that, for example, G20 Global Smart City Alliance now recently worked on this kind of model policy for data-driven innovation, including privacy, transparency, security, interoperability, and equity inclusion. And particularly these issues are important in the exploration of sustainable development goals, SDGs. So this is just for example, the privacy impact assessment, and this is a kind of model policy framework, and then this is will be implemented, tested in many cities across the globe. So this is the end of my talk, and there are many challenges, as I mentioned, and what I should emphasize at the end is that we really need to work with the stakeholders and test it, and then learn it, because we don't know exactly what will be happening in the end. So, so one challenge is that how we can incorporate that kind of learning and adaptation in your business models and also policy approaches. So this is the end of my talk, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Professor Yarime. By learning the outline and initiatives of data-driven innovation in different sectors, we learned it is really, it has really big possibilities in the business and also the society. But also we learned that there are many challenges that we have to overcome in facilitating and also facilitating the data-driven innovation. Now we would like to move on to the Q&A session. Again, here, allow me to encourage everyone to pose your questions for Professor Yarime with your name and country at the YouTube live chat section. While waiting for questions from viewer, let me start asking questions from myself. The first question is about enterprise level, especially SMEs. In your presentation, you said the inclusion of different domains, sectors, and also stakeholders are important. Then I think there are many SMEs who would like to join these initiatives and also the businesses. So at the enterprise level, the question is, how can SMEs better deploy big data? So can you share your advice on how to resolve the constraints of financial or technical, lack of financial or technical resources for SMEs to deploy big data?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, this is absolutely an important question. And yeah, that's really issue. As you mentioned, that the SMEs tend to lack some key resources, the knowledge resources, financial resources. So one challenge would be perhaps how we can support them by providing all these resources from outside. And then, for example, in the case of the UK, they initiated kind of regulatory sandbox, particularly targeting SMEs, so that the policymakers and other stakeholders work together with SMEs, and then they can provide some necessary skills and also knowledge and expertise, and also, if necessary, some kind of financial support can be provided in a kind of space where that SMEs are allowed to do some experimentation and also to do some testing of their new ideas and new business plans, so that they can rely on some of the expertise and knowledge in this kind of a program from the policymakers and also other relevant agencies. So that's be one possibility we can think about.
Thank you very much for your answer. We've just got questions related to the SMEs. So I just would like to introduce the questions. And if you have any additional comments, please give us. So this question is from Mr. Takumi Imoto from Japan. It seems to be difficult for many SMEs to collect data by themselves. How can they access big data and utilize big data for their businesses? So this is a question from a viewer. So I think you answered in a previous question, but if you have anything to add, could you tell us your comments?
Yes, yeah, this is also a very important question. Yes, this is really a big challenge to SMEs, and particularly given that we see many platformers like Google and others. So increasingly, data will be collected through this kind of a platform. But at the same time, probably for SMEs, we can think about their domains in the sense that, as I mentioned at the beginning, that in the end, that in cyber-physical systems, we need to integrate big data analytics with domain expertise and knowledge. And perhaps in the case of SMEs, these companies should have their own domain. So, and then some of the data may not necessarily be picked up already, particularly in the case of physical systems, and which may not necessarily be easily accessed by big players. So if you can identify these areas, then that probably SMEs can somehow try to obtain data, and increasingly the IoT devices and also the AI systems would be also available to SMEs, which may not necessarily have sufficient expertise, specialized expertise in these areas. So I think that kind of possibility can be explored by SMEs.
There's another question, which is about public-private partnership. In your presentation, you mentioned the involvement of various stakeholders is necessary to facilitate data-driven innovation and also overcome the challenges. So to build innovative business models, many policymakers have encouraged the deployment of PPP. The question is, can you provide some successful cases of PPP for innovative data-driven business model?
Yeah, that's a very important question, and I think increasingly private sector and public sector are trying to work together, especially in areas like smart cities, because in smart cities that you really deal with the actual the area and regions where that many the companies in different sectors need to work together. So we see examples like in smart cities in Japan, and also in other countries like in the Barcelona and also Toronto and Amsterdam, and also in the case of China, there are many cases emerging. They all somehow try to work together by involving the governments and also private companies, and also the local communities and NGOs. One challenge will be, as I mentioned, how we can facilitate data collection and data sharing and data use, and then how we can, in a way, govern the whole system involving data. So in that sense, PPP will be particularly important. But then that the actual mode of PPP would be, I guess, different. For example, let's say in a very simplified way. For example, in the case of data governance, then probably the US, there are big data platformers in the US. So private companies will be very important, and they would probably have initiatives to deal with data governance. For example, in the case of China, the government has a very important role in managing data. So the public sector will be very important. And also in other countries, let's say in Europe, the individual rights will be given a kind of priority in data governance. So in this kind of case, the data trust, in the sense that independent entity to manage data collected in smart cities, for example, would be one option. And the countries like the UK, also the Canada, and these countries are discussing about data trust. And also probably in the case of Japan, that the data bank or information bank will be kind of topic we have been discussing so far. So the mode of PPP probably will be different, reflecting these differences in preferences and also concerns about the data. So it's not really easy to just pick up one case which can be applicable in different parts of the world. So I think it's essentially up to the stakeholders and local communities to think about which mode will be the most appropriate, considering the existing institutional environment.
Thank you very much for your answer. So far, we have asked questions about the enterprise level, government level, and levels. Then now we would like to focus on the individual level. So this will be the last question for you. So big data and AI have huge impact on also the individual level. Then in your presentation, you mentioned the training, for example, the managers and also the policymakers. Human resource development is important, but also it has an impact on the workers level and the individual workforce employees level. So at the individual workforce level, how can individuals better equip themselves for digital economy? Can you share your idea on this?
Yeah, thank you very much for, again, a very important question. And this will be very critical challenge for the future generations, how we can develop our skills and our capacities in the context of emerging data-driven innovation. Yeah, that's a really difficult question. And obviously, we can think about developing skills for data analytics in a way that probably we have. I mean, everybody should be familiar with some of the basics about all this data, the analytics, data science. Probably that would be probably important wherever you go in different sectors. But at the same time, as I mentioned, that we also need to integrate them with the domain expertise and domain knowledge. So which means that unless you work really specializing on data analytics, then that in a way you'll be probably users of data analytics, and then use the knowledge coming from data analytics for other domains and other applications. So in that sense, that we need to be able to integrate the findings of data analytics with your own expertise in other domains. So that kind of the skills for linking the knowledge would be important. And also, increasingly, in the case of smart cities, for example, we have to tackle societal challenges. And then we have to, in a way, in the end, work with other stakeholders and then have consensus among them. So which means that we need to be able to identify what are the key issues, key challenges we should address in a particular context, and then how we can work with the stakeholders, how we can communicate with them, and then how we can work together, and then how we can monitor the process. So all these skills would be, I guess, also, I would say, equally important in addition to the technical expertise about data analytics. So in a way, that might be too demanding, but at the same time, we also probably should emphasize that because the technologies are evolving so rapidly, so we need to be able to adjust ourselves to this changing environment. So I guess I would say we need to have a flexibility and a capacity to change yourself. So these kind of capabilities will be, I guess, important in the future.
Thank you very much for answering our questions. Now, it is almost the end of the session. Lastly, as a wrap-up, I would like you to give your final remarks to our viewers. Nowadays, due to COVID-19, we face a lot of challenges in many aspects. Could you share with us your idea on the possibilities of data-driven business models in the post-pandemic? How would the future of business models look like in the post-pandemic?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, this COVID-19 somehow posed really serious challenge to everybody in the world. And probably you could say that the COVID-19 pandemic accelerated the emergence of data-driven innovation and in a way necessitated our preparation and readiness to develop and use data-driven innovation. So I think to some sectors, this COVID-19 posed really a serious challenge in the sense that the decline in customers' demands. But at the same time, this created really big opportunities for new services, particularly eliminating like physical contacts and then improving the efficiency of providing services. So, which means that probably we can see a lot of opportunities available for new businesses to enter in sectors which traditionally might have been dominated by existing big players. So we really need to think about carefully what are the key issues and key demands in society, and then how we can use emerging new technologies and how we can identify the key stakeholders involved and who has data, how we can negotiate for access to data, and then how we can manage data, and then we can think about new business models. And to do so, probably policymakers can support by creating a kind of space or a kind of a sandbox so that we can encourage the testing and experimenting new ideas and new technologies for new entrants.
Thank you very much for your inspirational message, Professor Yarime. We really appreciate your time today. Disruptions by technologies and innovations have caused a lot of changes to the way we work. The COVID-19 pandemic only accelerated all these changes. The path to recovery will likely be long and challenging, but also can be taken as a good opportunity, as Professor Yarime said. The APO will host more productivity talks featuring different resource persons and guest speakers with the aim of building economic resilience and business continuity. So please join our series of APO talks featuring world-leading experts and guest speakers such as Professor Yarime. Until then, we wish you and your loved ones to be in the very best of health during this tough season. So for viewers, sorry, because of the time, I was not able to pick all the questions, but I hope you enjoyed this session today. So thank you very much, Professor Yarime, and thank you very much, everyone. Please take care and goodbye. Thank you.